Okay, so I've got a question for you. What are you expecting to be different in your life today? What are you imagining to be different about your health? What about your finances? What about one or more of your relationships? How do you see those things changing today? Because it's how we imagine life that attracts our best lives in 3, 2, 1.
Pushing the boundaries of expectations and rewriting the rules of adventure are the reasons we get up in the morning. This is a way of life, a huge and growing community of explorers and adventurers, leading the way, blazing new trails, and raising the bar. We share your hunger for a life without limits, and we know you'll stop at nothing to get there.
Greetings, Kinetic Believers from all four corners of the earth. I'm Stephen Canyon. So glad you could join us for another adventure of attracting our best lives. If you'd like to send in an email, kineticbelief@stephencanyon.com gets it here. stephencanyon.com is the website. Hello, Miss Maggie.
Hey, Stephen Canyon.
Where are the four corners located?
What?
Of the earth.
Of the earth?
Yes. They're four corners. Where are they? Geographically.
All of a sudden, I feel concerned that you're a flat earther.
Well, that would draw a crowd, wouldn't it? The flat earthers.
Well, there's the four corners, so there's obviously the poles.
Well, the north, east, south, and west. We'll go with that, right?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
That made me feel
Let me ask you, are you looking forward to October 10th as much as I am?
Yes.
You
Woohoo!
are?
Yay.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's coming
Christmas.
up. Just 3 weeks away. We had to cancel our workshops. Now, listen, in Atlanta, Georgia, and this was one after another, beginning first of the year. We had one scheduled in Atlanta, and it was coming up in March. Had to cancel it for obvious reasons, and then the next one, we were holding out hope it was going to happen in Dallas, Texas. We had to cancel.
Nope.
And then we went on to Sedona, Arizona, going, okay, all right, what are we going to do? We've got one that we're doing a retreat. After the workshops, we were supposed to do a retreat in Sedona, Arizona. And we hung out there for 3 months waiting for something to change, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Had to be canceled.
Yep. I'm sure we're not the only ones that have been playing that waiting game.
Oh, I know we're not.
Everything
but
canceling.
we are now ready to go. Registration is now open for the October 10th Kinetic Belief Live workshop.
So exciting.
I'm going, and you know what I get most excited about, other
What?
than I'm just being tongue-tied here trying to get it all out. I'm going to be answering questions, unpacking Kinetic Belief, literally handing out the keys to the car of the Kinetic Belief machine that attracts abundance and healing and relationships. And also, we're going to be talking about how KB creatives can work through the power of agreement as well. All these things. October 10th, Kinetic Belief Workshop begins at 1 p.m. And if you want to get in on asking questions, all you got to do is make sure that you register early enough, and which is, by the way, now open on the website.
Registration is open, yes. Ding, ding, ding. Just go to the website, stephencanyon.com, and look for the tab that says Live Workshops. That's pretty simple.
Kinetic Belief Live. And Megan, you're going to be there?
I'm going to be there.
We're going to be there together. I can't wait.
I can't either. I'm so excited. After all this waiting, we finally get to have this workshop with the KBs.
Yeah. Oh, today we're talking about the best life is first imagined. There aren't many things as enjoyable for myself than that of seeing the imagination working out loud in children.
Yes, I agree.
It's
so pure.
It's so pure, so entertaining.
The original imagination.
The original one, kids, and especially when you see little kid babies playing the role of adults, like the one you showed me a couple of days ago. This morning I was still laughing.
My goodness, the cutest little redheaded. She couldn't have been one, maybe 2 years old. So tiny.
18 months.
18 months,
right?
Probably. So tiny, and she's on the phone going, "I gotta go." What? I gotta go. I mean. Who is she?
Oh, no, it was
she was so articulate.
The brow was furrowed, the eyebrows up and down, and she was glancing beside, and it looked like an adult trapped in an 18-month-old body. The cutest thing. Oh,
I feel like we need a whole page dedicated to the videos and memes that we talk about on the podcast, so that people can go look at them.
It's hilarious. But you could see the wheels of the imagination turning.
Yeah.
And it's something that we all have, and most of us lose it.
Oh, she was in an office having a very real chewing someone out conversation.
What were some of the most enjoyable things you used to imagine playing as a child?
Oh my goodness, so much make believe. We had a great huge backyard with a big wooded area, big forest behind our house. So it was lots of princess things and, running from villains and lots of Disney movie.
Did you
things.
you like wear put on your mom's shoes and do
Not the shoes, but the dress
you
up. Yeah, not the shoes, but like lots of, she would take us, actually, she would do this great thing. She would take us to thrift stores and just let us buy all these really, pennies prom dresses, and we would sort of cut those up and have fun with those and hats. And make believe was all day, every day.
I remember, and it's funny.
Did I
I'm just
trigger
now
a
remember.
memory?
Yeah, you just triggered a memory I had completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where my mom bought these things, but I had these little uniforms. I was probably, maybe 4 years old,
Okay.
maybe 4 or 5 years old. And I had an astronaut uniform, a costume. What uniform? We'll call it a uniform.
Costume.
A spacesuit. Is that a uniform?
Yeah.
Okay. I had the spacesuit uniform, and it was silver.
Wow.
Just like an astronaut would wear. I had
pretty cool,
I had a policeman uniform,
Yeah.
a fireman uniform,
Yeah.
a Navy uniform, and an
word.
astronaut.
That is
Are you kidding me?
high end.
I'm already crazy with my imagination as it is, but put those things on and I'm gone.
Oh yeah, most kids are using the towel as the cape, and you've got the real thing.
It works.
That's amazing.
My brother had a mishap with a towel for a cape,
He
and
did?
he flew off the garage.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah, he
Did he break anything?
Yeah, we had to wear a back brace for.
Oh my word.
I don't know. I'm first grade and helping Mike put the back brace on.
Oh my word.
For
Poor
a
Mike.
year, I guess.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Imaginations.
Yeah, imagination. They will get you
Also-
into all kinds of situations.
And something that was really a lot of fun for me. I remember one of my earliest memories was playing Star Trek with my best friend.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
We were making the little communicators out of folding up paper,
Yeah.
like little paper
That's
football.
great.
And
That's great.
just out walking around, talking on the communicator.
But you're right. I mean,
it
there's
was
no
fun.
imagination like the one that you have when you're a child. It is so uninhibited. So, there's no ceiling. There's no stopping it. It's just anything and everything just flows in there, and when you're playing, you can see it. It's just so real to you.
We all have that ability that we want to stir up within us today.
Yes.
The best life is first imagined. So don't say, I don't know how to imagine. Just go back to those earliest memories and remember what it was like to do that and transfix yourself by thinking about something else. Imagine.
Yeah.
Kinetic believers are on a journey. And no journey was ever begun that did not first use the imagination to see it. Growing up, I know you used to love going to amusement parks, and we've talked about it.
Yes.
One was Carowinds, and
Yes.
the first thing that any of us do is imagine to see ourselves doing something before we go and do it. So you would, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you would sit at home and think about,
Oh yeah.
imagine being at this park.
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, just sit at home and ponder it and think about it and imagine, because I have to say, this park, they were always putting in new rides too, so the excitement of the new thing and then the tried and true things as well. I mean, it was just, whew. I'm like you, I'm getting tongue-tied because I'm remembering how excited I was.
We were having this conversation. We were driving
funny.
through North Carolina. It's been several years now, and you got me so stirred up about Carowinds that we actually went online and we bought a couple of passes to
Yeah.
go, and we were going through Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm like, oh, the Carowinds is nearby. Let's go use our passes that we bought online, and we drive up through the huge, massive parking lot to the gate, and they were closed for the season.
For the season. They had closed like the week before.
See, I didn't imagine that.
Yeah. Didn't see that coming.
I was in the lobby working on some content creation, and I overheard a young man around the corner, and he was on the phone having a conversation, and I kind of figured out that it was with his wife. But apparently they were planning a trip to Las Vegas and then what they were going to do when they get there.
Okay.
And the conversation became more heated and louder to where he's yelling into the phone, I don't want to go because I don't know what the circus is about. And I'm thinking, who doesn't know what the circus is about? Oh my goodness, the imagination, and isn't that it? How many things have we not done in our lives because we didn't have the information? We hadn't experienced the observation of a thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the file box.
So true.
And so we don't even know what we're supposed to be selecting or choosing from. The imagination needs observation to function. One person who discovered this was a little silver-haired gentleman by the name of Albert Einstein. And when he started coming up with all his theories, the scientific community got so upset with him that they totally ostracized him. They just didn't want to have anything to do with him. And so, which is actually typical from within the scientific competitiveness world of ideas. But Einstein's peers, they could not understand how he was getting these formulas, these ideas, where were they coming from? I mean, after all these scholars have been to the best schools. They studied the same papers, the same theories, and they all had the exact same clinical awareness, clinical observation, clinical knowledge. Right. And they were supposed to be the smartest people around. But somehow Einstein, here he was, outsmarting all these guys. And he was coming up with things that they never, ever, watch this, imagined. When they asked him how he came up with his theories, Einstein told them that he'd say, well, I just sit there for long periods of time with a tablet in my lap, which people later learned was actually the Bible. And Einstein would say, God, let me come up there with you and let me look down on this universe so you can show me how you made it. Wow. Imagination. Now, a lot of people consider this kind of thinking to be kind of foolish, but I want to tell you something. That's actually the way kinetic believers find the lens for change in their lives. The vision of imagination.
Yes. Yeah.
Observation is the mother of imagination, and imagination the father of change. A person who's not exposed, listen, somebody that isn't exposed to new things cannot bring new thinking to a problem, to an issue in their life.
Right.
Whatever it is that you may be facing, if you don't have the exposure to new things, the observation of new possibilities, to stir up the imagination, new thinking cannot show up on the scene. How many times have you been hungry and you open up the refrigerator to get something out to eat and there's nothing in there? And then what happens a few minutes later? You open the refrigerator again and you look in there again. Guess what? There's still nothing there.
You're hoping.
It's not in there. What you want is not there. In fact, you really don't even know what it is that you want. You just hope something will appear. You don't know what you want because there's nothing on the menu. In exactly the same way, for our imaginations to grow and become larger, full of more possibilities, with more items on the menu, we have to be filled with observations in order to be able to feed it.
That makes so much sense. And I'm assuming that you're about to tell us how do we expose ourselves to these new things without realizing what we are missing?
We need a menu that's full of observations. A menu that's overflowing with things to choose from to feed our imaginations. Look, the more experiences, which can be travel, books, museums, or like Da Vinci, spending an afternoon watching water eddy as it just swirls around a rock in a nearby stream. We need those things. Maybe it's a podcast or just showing up somewhere to simply observe and watch. With a genuine curiosity, those are the things that fill up the refrigerator of the mind while giving our imaginations plenty to work with.
Wow, that's such a great thought, isn't it? Just the power of having new experiences. And I like too how you really laid it out for us in this, really in a way that says, you don't have to love them. You don't have to love all the new experiences. You just need to have them so that you have different ideas to pull from.
Experiences or observations, it's the observations that generate the imagination. An inspired imagination, Meg, it begins to rearrange the universe around us because it becomes us, to increase and advance our lives. It's the unwavering imagination to receive, to believe something as though it already is. It is the inspired imagination that attracts change to our lives.
Yeah.
prosperity where there hadn't been any prosperity. It's the imagination that brings healing in on the scene where there is sickness. It's the imagination that brings joy where there's sadness, happiness where there's depression. Look, there's no hurry and there's no worry found in the confidence of imaginations, because it's in the realm of imaginations that all things are possible at any time. So we don't need to hurry or worry or be anxious about anything. Why? Because our world's being constructed, our subjective reality, by the things we imagine to believe to see. And that's exactly the kind of attitude that the kinetic believer has as a way of life in order to be able to attract their best lives.
So as we're using this new mechanism to, like you're saying, attract our best lives, do these new experiences, do they need to be outside of our comfort zone, or do they just need to be new?
Well, it's a great question. And again, I don't want to confuse or mix the word experience with observation. Because sometimes we think, well, I don't have the experience to do a thing. It's not necessary. We only need to observe. You can observe through a book or a museum. Observe through the thought forms of a conversation. We can observe through a podcast. Observe through the imagination.
Wow.
The observations of reality, of possibilities beyond us. Those are the things that stimulate the imagination to be able to change our circumstances.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you remember we were doing some field team relief work to an impoverished family, and this was in up near Harlan, Kentucky. And we found a family. It was, I think, 8 kids, 8 children living by themselves in a small cabin with the oldest girl, 16 years old, taking care of all of the children. They didn't have parents with them.
Yeah.
And one of the boys, I'll never forget, he took us into his little room where he shared with several others. But this young man said that he wanted to one day be a basketball coach.
Yes.
And he had wallpapered his walls with the articles from newspapers about coaches in basketball and stories about tournaments. And he
literally wallpapered
his walls. What was he doing? He's working the observation, the skills of observation to stimulate the imagination, to insert himself as an adult into the role of being the basketball coach.
Wow. So it's really clicking now that these experiences are experiences within the imagination. They're coming from this idea of meditating on new things, on your new life, on, putting pressure on imagining a new way of living, the new thing that you're pursuing.
It has to be on the menu. We can't keep going to the same empty refrigerator hoping to find something different unless there's something else there.
Yeah, wow.
It's like opening a file box, looking for a particular thing, and it's not in there, but we continue to go and look and go through the file box unless we put something else in there to observe.
Yeah.
We're not going to stimulate the imagination. So it's the observation of possibilities that stimulates the imagination. Because, look, inspired imaginations give us the ability to rise above where we are. That's how we advance, and that's how we go beyond what is expected from those around us. It's to imagine from above, like Einstein said. Those domesticated thought forms, we unbecome those things that have been expected of us, that have been formed around us. And we do it by rising above all of that, to open ourselves up to the vision of wisdom.
Yes.
We were marveling, or I was, and I brought you in on it yesterday, of Bryson DeChambeau. I don't play golf at all. I did when I was a teenager, but then I gave the clubs that I found, I gave them away. But after this guy just won the U.S. Open golf tournament, and apparently this is a guy that went in there and he changed his body physically, and had decided that he was going to reshape the game of golf. He imagined playing it differently than anyone else had ever played it. Bryson DeChambeau, he then thought that he's literally, and this was a quote from him, that he was literally pioneering the way that golf is being played in his own mind. And so he rethought the game, and he showed up with an ability to power through this golf course. Wow. And his promise to redefine golf was through the physical transformation of his body. I think he gained 40 pounds, lifted weights, and he's out there powering the golf ball over trees into the rough. I think he hit 8 fairways out of 27, and by design. But the byproduct was a performance that was impossible to predict by anybody else because there was no precedent for what he was doing.
Wow.
And it all started with the imagination. He imagined this way of playing the game of golf first.
Yes.
Like most professional athletes, they don't reach these pinnacle ways of physical excellence and performance without first imagining it to be so.
Wow. Fascinating.
You know, Meg, all of us were created with the ability to imagine, like we're talking about with these children. Their first experiences are with the imagination. And by ascending to see things through the eyes of our Creator, we have the ability to imagine all things being possible. The text that Einstein was reading said, our Creator has raised us up together. Isn't that amazing? Yes. And made us sit together in those heavenly places. And it was for the very purpose of imagining, using our imaginations in order to attract change to our circumstances. Yeah. Einstein also once said, imagination's better than knowledge. It's more important
Agreed.
to see possibilities than to know the facts.
Yeah.
Far more important.
Well, what I love about that is it sort of puts you on this path of understanding that imagination is the unlimited possibility. So you can sort of point it in any direction. If you want knowledge, you can point your imagination in the knowledge direction. If you want talent or a new skill, you can point it in that direction. It makes me think about when I would learn a new piece in high school, especially when I was learning longer pieces, 20, 30-minute pieces. Before I would ever even attempt to play that piece, I would sit down with the music and listen to the music.
Now, when you say pieces, first of all, you're talking about playing the violin, which you play exceptionally well.
I guess I should say that because we have new listeners every day. So, yes, I play the violin and I've played my whole life. And so as I got into these more complicated pieces, my process became to sit down, put the actual CD at that time of music on, listen to it, and follow along on the score. And actually just follow along, and I would play the notes in my head. I would play them with my fingers in the air, and I would just do this over and over and over again. And then when I actually sat down to play the piece for the first time, it was amazing. It was light years beyond what I should have been for looking at trying to play this piece for the very first time. And a few times I didn't do that, thinking I could sort of just jump the gun and dive right in. And it was incredibly complicated. It was so much harder, so much more difficult. But it's exactly what you're saying. I was taking that time. I was taking a moment before I did anything to willfully and in this very in-depth way imagine what it would be like to play every note, to learn this piece, to play it fluidly before I actually did. The
ability, or should I say, the experience of having not played that piece fluidly was not yet inside the box. So you had to imagine to go outside of the box to bring the imagination of the reality of playing it into the box. Bryson DeChambeau, we were watching him in some of the highlights. There he was on the green putting, and it showed him he would sit down, he'd hold his club up between the ball and the cup, and then he closes his eyes. And he just sits there in his little squat formation with his eyes closed. What was he doing?
Motionless, just so
he was
still.
Imagining the ball going into the cup first before he putted it, thinking outside of the box. But here's where so many people stop the process of attracting change into their lives. They don't trust their imaginations. They think, oh, that would never work. And then they think things like, well, what would they think about me if I did that? What would so-and-so say about me if I did this thing? Nobody else does it this way, so it must be a bad idea. Well, it's just not possible to fulfill our genius of purpose, which is located within our personal perspectives, as long as we are allowing ourselves to be tossed around by believing the condemnation and by having this lack in confidence because we need someone to show up and validate our imagination.
What a powerful point, that when you're doing this, you're not just expanding your idea of what's not possible for you, you're expanding the possibilities for yourself.
We can imagine failure.
Right.
which most people do. We can imagine the negative judgments of other people. And because we are just too busy judging everybody and everything around us in the same way, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
By being caught up within the negative energetics of judging and condemning other people. And so what ends up happening is we're all, people that do that, we're just following after like kind rather than shining.
How do you, I was just wondering, how do you make that switch? How do you make that switch and even realize that, oh, I'm limiting my imaginations and I need to get rid of those limits and just soar and have, there should be no ceiling to what I'm allowing myself to imagine, the scenarios I'm imagining myself in.
All of us have the ability to make that switch. And this is what's so exciting because, look, the end result of looking around to find our way, rather than looking within to imagine our way, that's the thing that leads to a life of mediocrity. But what we want to do is work our kinetic belief every single day. And we do this by relaxing into our unique genius of purpose in present tense with positive energetics to be able to expand our observations in order to have something to use for inspiration where our imaginations are concerned. So the formula is observe to be inspired, then imagine to grow.
I saw recently in an interesting interview, I cannot think who the interview was with. I wish I could remember, but that person made the point. He all of a sudden found himself in this weird scenario. He said, I was all of a sudden in the room with Jeff Bezos of Amazon. And he said, and my first thought was just, wow, this man, this human, this person represents a huge possibility for me. He said, just seeing this person in the embodiment of possibilities was so inspiring. He said, it just totally changed my self-image because all of a sudden I thought, I'm a man, he's a man, we're both humans. Look at the possibilities that are available to me.
And the commonality, the correct one is the imagination.
Yes.
The imagination enables the impossible to be possible. The imagination enables us to be able to fly.
Yeah.
As with nearly everything in life, we get better at this with practice. You know, kinetic belief is a way of life for the KB creative. Don't forget your thought forms and write them down as soon as the imagination presents them to you. See them in use. See them as tools of yours. And then by all means go and journal exactly what it is that you see.
Yes.
Make a habit of returning to your imaginations and see them in the present tense, operating in your life, while gratefully believing that, you know what, you're attracting the life that you imagine to see. Plan time for the daydream.
Yeah.
Don't just wait for inspiration to become you. Plan to be inspired. You know, my workouts, I was telling you last night, I couldn't tell if you were interested or not, but I was telling you my workouts are better if I plan them. You know, you're like, oh, that's good. But seriously, they are.
I was listening, I swear.
You were? Okay. Well, my
Sure.
workouts, they're better the next day if I plan them the day before.
Yeah,
Because I'm not in a hurry.
that's like my outfits. My outfits are better if I plan them the day before.
But like your outfits and my workouts, you have to grant permission to yourself to wear it. I've got to grant permission to myself to take the time to work out.
Yes.
And see myself first, imagine myself having the perfect workout. And the more we relax into a thing, then the more access we get to be able to create in the subconscious a new way of thinking. We're rewilding ourselves with an expectation.
That gives a really interesting extra layer to what you're saying, because that's really telling us to press into and relax into the present, which seems like it would be a little contradictory to always imagining what you believe to see about yourself. But actually those fit perfectly together. They go hand in hand because we're believing those imaginations, we're believing those into the present. We're believing those for ourselves now, today, in real time. And so combining the present tense with the imagination, relaxing into that position, I really love that.
Relaxing into it's another way of saying unconditionally love yourself enough to give yourself permission to relax into being who you were created to be.
Yeah.
And not hurry or worry or be anxious about it. Da Vinci had to first relax into the imaginative permission to lay on his belly by the side of a creek and spend an entire day watching an eddy.
Yes.
spin round and round, and to observe it and to imagine what
be
it
inspired.
could possibly be about, to
Yes.
find inspiration in that. Look, regardless of your age, be playful. Be a kid again.
Yeah.
I've met a number of people that couldn't recollect any memories from their childhood. Be playful. Give yourself permission to imagine. Kids, for the most part, don't know that they can't until somebody or gravity tells them otherwise.
Do you think that this level of imagination requires a lighthearted spirit?
It requires unconditional love, which is a lighthearted spirit about self. This is a way of life for the KB creative. Listen to music. Fall in love with yourself all over again and light a candle. Einstein
love it.
said, imagination encircles the world. So let me ask you, where are you going today? Let's work on some guided thought forms together. The best life is first imagined. Just say this out loud. Say, my inspired imagination
My inspired imagination
manifests my best life.
manifests my best life.
I can see no limitations.
I can see no limitations.
There's nothing to overcome.
There is nothing to overcome.
Nothing I cannot be
Nothing I cannot be
or do.
Or do.
The things I imagine
The things I imagine
are much better
are much better
than what's around me.
than what's around me.
I am perfectly clear with my vision.
I am perfectly clear with my vision.
I use my observations
I use my observations
for inspiration.
for inspiration.
And positivity
And positivity
creates
creates
creative
purposes
in my life.
In my life.
I have a beautifully intricate and wondrous imagination
I have a beautifully intricate and wondrous imagination.
that is unique to me,
It's unique to me.
that represents who I'm supposed to be,
That represents who I'm supposed to be.
and attracts only love and
It
success.
attracts only love and success.
I possess the creative authority
I possess the creative authority
and power to attract
and power to attract
all my dreams,
all my dreams.
using my unwavering imagination.
Using my unwavering imagination.
I apply my creative imagination
I apply that creative imagination
as a way of life.
as a way of life.
My imagination is my reality,
My imagination is my reality.
and I choose my reality
And I choose my reality
by imagining my mind,
by imagining my mind,
body, and soul
body and soul
advancing every day
advancing every day
to create my best life.
to create my best life.
I am love.
I am love.
I am perfect health.
I am perfect health.
I am prosperous.
I am prosperous.
I am full of joy.
I'm full of joy.
I am happy.
I am happy.
I am
I am
me.
me. Wow, what a powerful, powerful podcast. The best life is first imagined. If you want to take a look at the journal that Stephen mentioned on today's podcast, you can do that at stephenkenyon.com. And make sure and click on the live workshops tab and check out the workshop coming up on October 10th.
October 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm so excited to be back in front of all of our KB creatives,
Yes.
sending out much love to all you guys all over the world.
All over the world. And thanks, as usual, Steve, for all the wisdom.
Bye.
Whoa, that was really good.